In 2007, a humpback whale was found off the coast of San Francisco, tangled in hundreds of meters of commercial crab trap rope. The lines were wrapped around her tail, her fins, pulling her downward with so much weight that she could barely stay at the surface to breathe. A rescue team was called. 4 divers went into the water and spent the next hour cutting through line after line, working carefully around an animal that could have killed any of them with a single involuntary movement of her tail. The whale stayed still. When the last rope was cut and she was completely free, she didn't immediately swim away. Instead, she swam to each diver, one by one, and nudged them gently with her enormous head. She spent time with each person individually, moving between them in a way the rescue team described as deliberate, as intentional, as nothing they had ever seen a wild whale do before. The lead diver said later that he wept in the water, and that being touched by that whale was the most profound experience of his life. He said it felt like being thanked. Now here's the question that should be burning in your mind right now. Was it? Was that whale actually expressing something we'd recognize as gratitude? Was she aware that these specific creatures had just saved her life? Or was it a coincidence of behavior, a stressed animal seeking contact with whatever was nearby? Because the answer to that question, the real answer grounded in actual science, is far more complex, far more emotional, and far more surprising than most people ever expect. And by the end of this video, you will never again dismiss what an animal does after you help it as a simple accident. Stay here, because this story gets genuinely extraordinary. Let's start with the most fundamental question underneath all of this, because we need to answer it before we can answer anything else. Do animals actually have the cognitive capacity to recognize a specific individual human face, remember that individual over time, and associate that individual with a specific past experience? Not as a philosophical question, as a neuroscience question. And the answer, across an astonishing range of species, is yes, sometimes in ways that outperform humans entirely. Crows can recognize individual human faces. This was confirmed in a now famous study at the University of Washington, where researchers wore specific masks while trapping and banding crows, then walked around campus later wearing those same masks with no threatening equipment at all. The crows remembered. They dive-bombed the specific masks, scolded the specific people wearing them, and recruited other crows who hadn't even been present during the original trapping event to join the harassment. The face memory persisted for years. It was passed socially to other birds. And critically, the crows distinguished between threatening individuals and neutral individuals with a precision that suggested genuine individual facial recognition, not just general human avoidance. Octopuses, which have a nervous system organized so differently from vertebrates that they essentially represent an independent evolution of intelligence, have been documented forming clear preferences for specific individual humans in aquarium settings. Individual octopuses have been recorded consistently moving toward certain staff members and squirting water at others, not at humans generally, at specific people. The aquarium world is full of these stories, and while they sound anecdotal, they are documented enough and consistent enough across facilities worldwide that marine biologists take them seriously as evidence of genuine individual recognition across the vertebrate-invertebrate divide. Elephants remember specific humans across decades. Researchers studying elephant behavior in African wildlife reserves have documented individual elephants showing measurably different behavioral responses to specific human researchers who had interacted with them years or even decades earlier, compared to unfamiliar humans approaching in identical circumstances. This isn't just general wariness or general friendliness based on species familiarity. It's targeted, individual recognition that persists over timescales that challenge what we assume about non-human memory. But recognition is only half the question in this video. The deeper half is this. Does that recognition come loaded with emotional context? When an animal sees the specific human who helped it, does something happen in its brain beyond simple identification? Is there something that functions like memory of feeling safe, like memory of relief, like memory of kindness? And this is where the neuroscience becomes genuinely stunning, because the answer is yes, and we can actually see it happening. Here's where I need you to stay close, because what I'm about to explain changes everything you think you know about the line between human and animal emotional experience. The limbic system, the brain structure responsible for emotional processing and emotional memory, is not a human invention. It is an ancient, evolutionarily conserved structure that exists in recognizably similar form in virtually every vertebrate animal on Earth. Birds have it. Fish have it. Reptiles have a version of it. Mammals have it in a form closely enough related to the human limbic system that the same neurotransmitters, the same hormones, the same basic emotional circuitry runs through them all. What this means practically is that when a mammal or bird experiences something, it doesn't just record the factual information of what happened. It records the emotional state associated with that experience, and that emotional state becomes part of the memory itself. This is why trauma in animals is real, measurable, and persistent. It's also why positive emotional experiences in animals are real, measurable, and persistent. The nervous system of a rescued animal doesn't just store the information that a human removed a painful trap. It stores the hormonal and neurological state associated with that moment. The relief of pain ending, the sudden absence of fear, the physical sensation of being handled carefully rather than violently. And when that animal later encounters the same human, those stored states can be reactivated. In behavioral science, this is called emotional memory consolidation, and while researchers are careful about the language they use to describe it in non-human animals, the underlying neurological mechanism is not meaningfully different from the one that makes a human feel warmth when they see someone who helped them during a difficult time. Now, I want to tell you about a lion. In 2011, wildlife conservationists Kevin Richardson and John Rendell were reunited on camera with a lion named Christian whom they had raised from a cub in London in 1969, then released into the wild in Africa. By the time of the reunion, Christian had been living wild for over a year, leading his own pride, functioning as a fully integrated wild predator with no need for human contact and significant reasons to regard unfamiliar humans as threats. The footage of that reunion has been seen by hundreds of millions of people. Christian ran toward the two men when he saw them from a distance, jumped up with his full adult weight, embraced them, rubbed his face against theirs, and stayed in physical contact with them for an extended period in a way that every behavioral biologist who has commented on the footage describes as consistent with reunion behavior between bonded individuals. Not general human friendliness. Not conditioned response to feeding, targeted recognition of specific individuals after more than a year of separation and a complete transformation of his living circumstances. The people who dismiss footage like this as anthropomorphism, as humans projecting emotions onto animal behavior, are making an error that the neuroscience no longer supports. They're not wrong to caution against overinterpretation. But the caution has been taken so far in one direction that it has become its own form of inaccuracy, refusing to acknowledge what the actual brain science says about emotional memory in mammals, because it's emotionally uncomfortable to accept what that implies. What it implies is this: the lion wasn't just happy to see familiar humans. He was experiencing something neurologically consistent with what a human experiences when reunited with someone they love after a long separation. The neurotransmitters are not different. The hormonal cascade is not different. The limbic activation is not different. What is different is the capacity for the animal to tell us about it in words. And we have made the catastrophic interpretive error of assuming that the inability to report an experience means the experience isn't happening. Stay with me, because the next part of this video goes somewhere I didn't expect when I first started researching it, and it reframes every single animal rescue story you've ever seen. There is a growing body of research into what happens physiologically in rescued animals during and after the rescue event itself, and the findings suggest something that most animal rescue organizations have known intuitively for years, but that science is now beginning to confirm in measurable terms. The moment of rescue is not just a physical event. It is a neurological event, a hormonal event, an emotional event in the most literal, non-metaphorical, scientifically measurable sense of that word. When an animal in pain or fear is approached by something that reduces that pain and fear rather than increasing it, the hormonal shift is dramatic and immediate. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, drops sharply. Oxytocin, the bonding and trust hormone that is not exclusive to humans, but present across all social mammals and many birds, rises. The nervous system shifts from sympathetic activation, the fight-or-flight state, toward parasympathetic recovery, the rest and connect state. And critically, this hormonal shift happens in association with specific sensory information: the scent of the rescuer, the sound of their voice, the specific quality of their touch. All of these get encoded alongside the emotional shift into a memory that will shape how that animal responds to those specific stimuli in every future encounter. This is the neuroscience of what happened when that humpback whale nudged each diver individually. She wasn't expressing gratitude in the human sense of a cognitive acknowledgement of debt. She was responding to the specific beings whose presence had been associated with the most dramatic positive physiological shift she had experienced in what may have been days of suffering. The approach, the smell, the hydrodynamic signature of those specific humans had become, in the most literal neurological sense, associated with relief, with safety, with the end of pain. Whether we call that recognition, or gratitude, or love, or just conditioning, depends entirely on how committed we are to maintaining a particular definition of those words. The biology doesn't change based on what we call it. Here's something that takes this even further. Something that the rescue community has documented so consistently that it has essentially become accepted wisdom among professional wildlife rehabilitators, even though it doesn't fit neatly into the standard scientific framework. Animals that have been rescued and released frequently return, not always, not predictably, but often enough across enough species, in enough documented cases, that it cannot be dismissed as coincidence. Sea turtles released after rehabilitation at specific facilities have been found returning to the general area of those facilities years later. Dolphins that were freed from entanglement have been documented making close approaches to research vessels associated with the rescue team in subsequent encounters. Individual birds released after rehabilitation have returned to the properties of the people who cared for them, sometimes years after release, in ways that cannot be explained by simple habitat preference, because the properties are not natural bird habitat. The explanations for this behavior are debated. Is it memory of a safe location? Is it individual recognition of specific humans? Is it some combination of both? Researchers don't fully agree, but the consistent pattern across species, across continents, across individual rehabilitators working in completely different contexts, suggests that something real is driving it. Something that involves memory, something that involves the specific experience of having been in a particular place with particular beings when the world went from terrible to safe. Now I want to give you the piece of this story that most people never reach, because it says something important not just about animals, but about us. The question, do animals recognize their rescuers, carries a hidden assumption that the rescuing is entirely one-directional. Humans help animals. Animals respond in whatever way their limited cognition allows. We are the subjects. They are the objects. But the documented evidence of what happens in sustained rescue and recovery relationships between humans and animals suggests something far more mutual, far more genuinely bilateral than that framework allows. Wildlife rehabilitators consistently report experiencing measurable psychological benefits from their work with rescued animals that go beyond the satisfaction of helping someone vulnerable. They describe the quality of attention a recovering animal gives them differently from interactions with healthy wild animals. They describe a kind of mutual recognition that they struggle to put into language without feeling that they'll be dismissed as sentimental. They describe relationships with individual animals that feel, functionally, like relationships with other individuals rather than interactions with a category of being. And the psychophysiology backs this up. The oxytocin response, the measurable hormonal response associated with social bonding and trust, is bidirectional in rescue interactions between humans and animals. It rises in the animal, it rises in the human. The same hormone, operating through the same receptor system, producing a measurable physiological state of bonding in both directions simultaneously. The rescue isn't just something humans do to animals. At the level of actual biology, it's something that happens between them. The humpback whale nudging each diver. Christian the lion running across the distance toward the men who raised him. The crow that dive bombs a specific face years later. The octopus that squirts a specific staff member every single time. The elephant that behaves differently toward a specific researcher it hasn't seen in a decade. What runs through all of these is not a mystery. It's memory. Emotional memory, the same neurological architecture that makes a human remember the person who sat with them in the hospital, not just as a recorded fact, but as a warmth that reactivates when they see that face again. The same ancient limbic system, the same oxytocin chemistry. The same mechanism. We have spent a very long time telling ourselves that the line between human emotional experience and animal emotional experience is clear and bright and located exactly where it is most convenient for us that it should be. The neuroscience of the last 30 years has been quietly, methodically, study by study, moving that line, not erasing it. Not saying that a crow's grief is identical to a human's grief, or that a whale's relief is identical to a human's relief, but demonstrating with increasing precision that the distance between them is not the philosophical canyon we assumed. It's something smaller, something more uncomfortable, something that asks us to take seriously what's happening on the other side of the glass every time we watch a rescue video and feel something we can't quite name. So, does the rescued animal recognize the human who helped it? Yes. In documented, measurable, neurologically grounded, behaviorally consistent ways that persist across time and circumstances. Does something pass between them in that recognition? Also yes. Something that has the same biological signature as what passes between two humans who share a moment of genuine care. Whether you're willing to call it what it looks like depends entirely on you. But the whale didn't care what you call it. She just swam to each diver one at a time and made contact. Deliberately. Individually. In the quiet water off San Francisco, with the last rope just gone and the pain just finished, and something that the biology of her nervous system will have encoded as safety, associated forever with the specific presence of the beings who brought it. She knew who they were. The science says she knew. And on some level, watching the footage, so do you.